Most photography travel videos that I tend to watch tend to be filled with too much gear, too many lenses, too many batteries, and too much stress. I just start worrying about all the things that I need to take with me on my next holiday, trip, or weekend away. However, over the past couple of years that I've been doing photography, I've really stripped back the amount of gear I take to simplify my life and make sure that nothing's getting in the way of me taking photos. So today I thought I'd walk through this concept with everyone, talk about the gear that I pair perfectly with my X100VI, but this will go for anyone with a camera, and hopefully you guys might find it useful. We are in the holiday season at the moment, it is the summer, but this will apply whenever you're planning on going on your next trip or holiday. When I'm going on holiday or I'm traveling and I'm packing my gear, it tends to be wherever I'm going, unfortunately, isn't just to take photos. I'm going on holiday to get a break from day-to-day life, and it isn't solely just to go to a new place to take photos. However, that is a nice benefit of going on holiday. So I've got a few key considerations for the gear that I take with me. It needs to be simple, it needs to be light, it needs to not get in my way, and it needs to be minimal. Because I'm on holiday to do other things, and photography is sort of a side project whilst I'm on holiday. That's why I bought, and that's why I take the X100VI with me. A 40 megapixel camera that gives me the option to crop, and a fixed lens that forces me to think about composure and help build upon my photography skills. And I think the other thing is it doesn't look out of place if I was to get all glammed up and all dressed up in the evening and take this out with me. If this was sat on a posh restaurant dining room table, it would not look out of place, which I don't think too many cameras can do that. I'm shooting on my Sony right now, and it would look quite out of place, and you definitely look like a photographer. But with this, it's just such a sexy looking camera that no one can say no to it. But as good as this camera is, there are a few things that I take with me that make sure that I'm shooting with this, I'm enjoying using it, and I get the most out of it. So most of the items on my gear list actually are in this little pouch. This little pouch is from Brevity. It is their little photo kit. I've had this for years, since I started photography, and this has got everything I need in it. So starting off, we're going to be talking about SD cards. Typically for me nowadays, I'll actually take micro SD cards, and the reason for that is I've got a lot of filming gear that requires micro SD cards. So in the event that I'm missing a micro SD card or an SD card, I can swap between the two using the adapters. But what micro SD cards just allow you to do is, if you're out somewhere for a week, a couple of weeks, you don't need to be worrying about backing your photos up onto different drives or an iCloud or whatever it might be, because we know hotel Wi-Fi is never guaranteed. So having multiple SD cards around with you on a day trip especially is fantastic, just in case anything corrupts or you find that you've got a problem with the SD card in your camera. You can just swap it out and you've got a new one there. To complement all the SD cards that you should be taking with you on your holiday or trip, you should also be taking some form of hard drive or SSD like this one. This one is the SanDisk Extreme Pro. Again, I've had this for years. I use it for video editing my photos. This one is just a terabyte, but what I like about this is I can plug this into my phone or my iPad once I've taken the photos off the SD card, and I can back them up onto this, and this goes in here. So it's really small, it's really lightweight, it's even got a little clip, so you could clip it to whatever you want. You could take it out with you even if you wanted to, so you could be backing up on the go, or maybe go to a coffee shop when you're wanting to get away from the family, and you could be editing the photos off this, and it's nice and secure. Another really important thing, I touched on batteries in the hook of this video, and whilst obviously the batteries inside the X100VI aren't exactly very big, they are quite expensive depending on which one you get, and I would always recommend either going for first party or a very well-known brand, because I've had many batteries from different companies before and they never really quite perform as well. Now also the other problem with just carrying around these batteries is most people tend to have watches, phones and other technology, and this whole concept is the fact that you need things to be versatile as well. That's why I take micro SD cards. I use an SSD that I can edit photos on my laptop or my phone. So instead of taking one of these with you, I would look at taking one of these. Now this is a 1000 milliamp hour battery pack. Now, the cool thing about this is it'll essentially charge my camera up fully from dead once, which is really nice. But the fact is, it's just a USB-C charger. So I could charge my phone, I could charge my watch, I could charge my DJI camera that I use to vlog with, and I can charge anyone else's stuff. Now, this is only 1000 milliamp, but the idea is that it would get you out on a pinch. I also take with me a 10,000 or a 5,000, or I shape it around the day and my needs. So if I know I'm not gonna be near an outlet all day, maybe I'll take the 5 or the 10,000 with this. If I know that I'm gonna be, driving around and I've got the ability to charge things, then taking this, it's so small, it's absolutely perfect. And they're really quite cost effective compared to having loads of these that then you can't use with any other devices. Now, another essential piece of gear to help you use this camera, and you might see it dangling around there, these little clips, they're extremely well known. I've got them in this lovely black, are the Peak Design cameras, the Peak Design straps. So Peak Design have been making camera straps for a very long time, and I have got loads of their camera straps. I absolutely love them. And I think what I love about them the most is the fact that if I'm going out for a day and I just want my camera around my body the whole day, I can take this and it will fully support it. Let's say maybe in the evening, I want to dress it up. I've got an even slimmer version of this that just is a bit more discreet and looks a bit nicer. Maybe I'm just planning on popping to the shops, but I want to take my camera with me just in case I get a few snaps. I've got the cuff. I think the versatility, especially when you're on holiday, and the ease of use using the Peak Design system just makes life easier, which obviously means you'll enjoy your holiday more. And you might take photos that you're even happier with. But Peak Design, or any type of interchangeable camera strap system, there are a few out there, is something that you definitely should consider. Don't just go with one strap, because you'll find that it's not versatile enough and you wish that you'd been able to swap in and swap out depending on whatever brand you're using. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about on the gear section of this video, you might just see them here, is probably, I would say it's a hobby within itself within photography, but for me it's maybe an addiction, and that is sling bags. I absolutely love slings. I don't think there is a better system out there. I think the ability to get to your stuff, be able to take off your bag, I love them. And I think they look so much better than rucksacks. I don't know if I feel more grown up maybe, but I always feel carrying a rucksack around, I just feel like I'm going to school. But with the sling, I don't. So on holiday, I'll be taking these two with me. And you might be thinking, why? Well, firstly, on the flight and on the plane, I've got this one. This is the TomTok 5.5 litre. It's got this waterproof coating on top. So again, keeps everything waterproof and protected, which is really important. And I can put everything that I need in there. This bag is absolutely massive. So I can put my camera in, I can put my iPad, I can put my Switch when I want to do some gaming. And the other thing is, when I'm going out for a day trip, I can either stick in my camera gear, and as much as I don't like to say it, I am a content creator, so I do need to take DJI cameras and other cameras like that. They can all fit in here really nicely. I also shoot with the 50mm adapter. That fits in here. Or I might want to carry a water bottle or just anything that really you could think of, I can chuck in here. Now, what do I want this for? Well, the reason I want this is like when I was talking about the fact that I might want to pop to the shops or go into the local town from the hotel or whatever it might be. I don't like things in my pockets. I don't know many guys that do like their pockets filled with things. So room card, keys, iPod, spare charger, anything like that, everything can go in here, bar the camera. And the nice thing about that is your camera's always out and on you, so you'll tend to be more likely to take more photos. I mean, the camera can fit in here. It does fit in here, which I will demonstrate just so no one so there's nothing. As you can see, it is in there. However, I can't really fit too much else in here, and I definitely couldn't fit it in with the 50mm adapter. And also, this looks a bit cleaner, it looks a bit nicer, so if I'm going to dinner or I'm going for a nice meal or whatever it might be, this can come with me. Keep all my stuff in, keep it all tidy, and there is a security thing to it as well. You know, thieves, pickpockets are a thing, and again, if you've got a sling or something on you, especially if it's front on you, it's far less likely that it's going to get stolen or anything's going to get taken out of it. Okay, so that was all the gear I take with me. However, as much as having all the gear is great and fantastic, it's no good if you arrive on holiday and you've got nowhere to go and take some photos. So we're now going to talk about the research that I do before I go on holiday, before I go on a trip, so I can plan out where and when to take some photos. So for me, I will start with Google Maps. Google Maps is absolutely fantastic from the fact you've got the satellite mode and you've got street view. And also there tends to be different viewpoints that it recommends to people when you're going on holiday. And it's great because you can be on Google Maps, you can be pinpointing different locations. And like for me, I'm going on a trip in a week's time, so I'll have a video out about that. But I'm going out in a week's time and I've planned on Wednesday a trip. Now, I've only been able to plan that because of Google Maps. I've dropped pins in different locations, checked out where I can park, things like that, and I can go and take some photos. So Google Maps is definitely your best friend. It's your best friend before, when you're planning, now, which is what you should be doing, and then whilst you're out there, download wherever you're going. So I'm going to Gran Canaria. Download the offline map for Gran Canaria. You've got all your pinpoints, so you're not really using data. You can be driving around. It's a no-brainer. However, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into different things you can do to supplement this method. So another method is watching YouTube videos like this. There are fantastic creators that have been around the globe and they know some of the best spots to take photos, or they can point you in the right direction. So I would highly recommend doing a Google or going on YouTube and watching a few videos to identify the types of photos that you like to take and maybe where those content creators have taken them. It's just a little tip and something that I like to do. And they tend to throw in a few bits and bobs where maybe you can get lunch or some local culture that you can immerse yourself in. So just a little bit of a tip there. Now, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Instagram, and I've done a video on that, however, Instagram and typing in Gran Canaria, for instance, is a great way of finding different locations, different spots that are Instagram worthy. Now, for me, I hate that word. However, if you're on holiday, you just need some cool places to go, and you never know, whoever else is going with you, they might want some selfies taken there and things like that, so you can blend the two together so you're not like, right, I'm going off for a day. So, because you have to think about it, it's not a photography trip. I know we'd really like it to be a photography trip, but sadly, none of us are professionals yet. So we're stuck with our partners, family members, friends, whoever it might be. Another place that I think is really underrated, and that is Reddit. If you start going on Reddit, whether it be on, so like for me, it's Fujifilm subreddit, or, I'm on one UK photographers, UK hiking, but you can expand that globally, looking at different posts that people have done. They tend to put in the location of wherever they've taken them, and again, it just gives you some inspiration that one, where you're going to, you can take some cool photos, and two, that their locations are there. And again, you can map them into Google Maps, and you could be walking around in the evening and go, oh, there's a photo spot like 2 seconds around the corner. So why wouldn't you just have a go? So you've got all the gear, you've got the locations that you're going to be shooting at. However, another part of being on holiday is the fact that 9 times out of 10, you're going to be walking around or taking photos with other people. So for me, what I like to do is have some custom settings dialed in that I can quickly flick to, depending on the scene, time of day, to sort of help me out, so I'm not like spending 5 minutes trying to figure out the settings. I've just got some settings that I know will roughly work, and 90% of the time will get me through whatever particular scene it is. So first one is my portraits setting, because I think when you're out traveling with other people, on holiday with other people, I think offering to take photos of them and doing some portrait photography is one, good for you, and two, it's giving back to them a little bit. They've got something to post on their stories and Instagram and things like that. So talking about the X100VI here, but I guess again, it'll apply to whatever camera. I keep the aperture as low as possible to try and get that bokeh as much as you can. Obviously, this only goes down to 2.2. No, 2, not 2.2. So it depends. If you've got a lens that goes down to f1.4, loads of bokeh. Next thing is keeping that ISO down. For me, I keep it to 500, so I've got that dynamic range set to automatic, so depending on the scene, it will figure it out. But keeping it low is generally not a bad idea. Shutter speed, maybe something like 1/250, just so you've got the photo nice and sharp, maybe even 1/500, just to make sure you've got it pin sharp if they're moving, flicking around, or doing various other things. For me, actually, with the Fujifilm camera, I tend not to use recipes very much for portrait photography. And the reason being is, as much as I like the look that I get out of this camera with the recipes, if I'm sharing to someone, they may be a bit like, why does my photo look weird? So what I tend to do is not have any custom Fujifilm recipe applied to this. I might have one of the preset ones, which is very light really in comparison to the custom ones, share it to them, but the fact is I can always apply a recipe afterwards, whether it's in the camera or it's on my computer at a later date, so it's not a deal breaker. Next one is just general street, beach, mountain, whatever it might be. This is just for everything that you could think of. I keep the aperture at f5.6 to f8, making sure everything is in focus and nothing has been clipped out. I keep the shutter speed at a minimum of 250, but I try and again keep it at 500. So again, if I'm moving around and doing things, I'm walking in and out of shops, again, everything is pin sharp. And then for me, ISO, I have it as high as it needs to be, so it's not getting in the way of the other settings. I use spot metering if the lighting gets a bit tricky and I want to make sure a particular portion of the photo is lit up correctly, the highlights are correct. So I like to use spot metering, and then on the back here I can use the little dial and be moving that little box about. And then of course I load in my favorite recipes and I go shooting and I decide which one is for me on that particular day. The last one that I tend to use is for low light situations, because a lot of the time you're going to be going out to restaurants, bars, cafes, whatever it might be. You're going to be exploring the local nightlife. So of course you need to be cranking that f-stop all the way around to like f2 or whatever the highest is. And really your ISO needs to be at like 3200 or 6400. On different cameras it depends, but there's like native ISOs. So on this camera a native ISO is 6400. So even though that's a lot, it's not actually that high. The photos don't actually look that bad because, and obviously the funny thing is you're going to be using a recipe with grain anyway, so you shouldn't be too worried about adding a little bit of extra grain from your photos by bumping up the ISO. Another consideration is using IBIS if you've got a camera that has IBIS like the X100VI, because it might be that you're lowering your shutter speed down a bit, and obviously if you've got shaky hands, the IBIS just helps steady things. And of course, use your inbuilt flash like the X100VI has, or use an adapter and stick a flash on there. Again, you can use that for portrait photography, or maybe if you're in a cafe or whatever it might be, get some cool shots like that. But yeah, definitely use the flash. I don't feel like enough people talk about that on the X100VI, but it's definitely a nice feature to have that built in. Okay, so we've covered everything there. You're ready to go, you're on the plane, you're going to your destination. However, there are a couple of more things that I just want to talk about that I think can maximize your trip, your journey, and maximize the amount of photos that you take. One thing I like to do is make a shots list. It sounds really obvious and really basic, but whether it's from photos I've seen on Instagram or when I've gone on Google Maps and I've seen a certain location, or maybe there's a town, I try and have a shots list so I can go through and go, yep, taking that shot, taking that one, and I don't have to worry about the fact that I haven't taken as many shots as I wanted. Now, having a shots list might mean that you end up taking less photos on the X100VI. However, the photos you're going to take are probably going to be more likely the ones that you want to take, and it'll make it a bit easier combing through your photos on your SD card or on your SSD or whatever it might be. So it makes your job a little bit easier, and it's just a nice thing to have. And also, if you give the shots list to your partner or your friends, it gets them more involved in the process, which is never a bad thing. The next thing I would suggest is, if you're in a town or a village, wherever it might be, go to the same place more than once. Don't just think, I've gone there, I've taken some photos, move on to the next place. I would explore it, look for the details, maybe do it in reverse and see what you've missed, or go at different times of the day and see how the light has changed and what it's reflecting off and things like that, because it might be that, because you never walk down the same street twice. So I would always do that. Something that I do, I'm always looking around, maybe, oh, can we walk back and see what it's like? Just a little thing, but worth thinking about. That ties into walking and going at different times of the day. Like I said, light is the most powerful thing, and it's really the only thing maybe that matters in photography. So going to a different place at different times of the day, golden hour, and during the middle of the day, maybe on sunsets, you don't know the photos you might capture and how things have changed. So try and immerse yourself, try and be aware of the time of day that you've taken a photo, and then maybe come back to it and see how golden hour, for instance, might change that shot. Last thing I would say is don't overshoot. This is something that I talk about a lot, but I've got 4,500 photos I can take in this camera. I'm probably not going to take 4,500 photos. I'd rather take 1,000 and love all of them. I mean, that's not going to happen, but rather than 4,500 photos and just fill up my SD card. So take less photos, but take better ones, and hopefully some of the things I've spoken about in this video will help you with that. So everyone, unfortunately, it's the end of the video, but this is how I approach going on holiday or when I go traveling, whether it's for a week, 2, or just a weekend. I wanted to share my thoughts with you as I'm currently packing for a holiday, so I thought it was quite relevant to me. Hopefully you'll find it relevant as well. So thank you everyone for watching. Of course, like, subscribe, comment your gear that you take with you on holiday and anything I've maybe overlooked or missed. I'd really love to hear it. So thank you everyone, and I'll catch everyone in the next video.